Dan Tack.
Hey, what's up?
Nioh.
Nioh.
The game that's been in development for 300 years. It's based on a Kurosawa napkin note.
It is. Man, it is out there. As far
So
as that goes.
here's our journey, the rest
Deep
of our
lore
journey.
here.
Mm-hmm.
So we've been playing this game at home. You then keep
Correct.
sending us updates saying, I'm pulling my hair out.
I never sent that.
Okay, but you did, quote unquote, send a message that said, this game makes Dark Souls look like Candy Crush.
I did. Obviously, I was exaggerating there. But yes, it is a difficult game, and more so when you're reviewing a game. This is something we don't talk about a lot.
Yeah.
When you're reviewing a game under a time crunch, it can be far more stressful to have a game like Dark Souls or Nioh as the thing. It's like you got to hit that time for embargo. You got to beat it. Obviously, you finish the game before you can accurately review it. So that can be very difficult in a game like that, where it's like, it's not just the pressure of not beating a boss. It's like, oh my gosh, am I actually going to get stuck and not be able to proceed here for
That's
X
the
time?
worst feeling ever as a reviewer when you cannot beat a boss.
I cannot imagine. And so, just for a baseline, this is Team Ninja. Ninja Gaiden guys, in theory, a lot of the team is disbanded and whatnot, but Team Ninja. And I remember originally you bristled at the idea of comparing it to Dark Souls, but how apt do you think that is for this overall game?
So I like to look at it sort of like a soup. And Dark Souls is the broth. So all the mechanics of Dark Souls are there.
Really?
But then they dump in a lot of new stuff.
We're talking like broccoli cheddar?
I mean, honestly, if I want to put this game in neat little baskets that you
Please
can
do.
easily identify with, it's
Yeah.
Dark Souls combined with Destiny's mission system combined with Diablo's loot. Boom.
All right, right out of the gate, what do you think of this game?
I really enjoy it.
Really?
Yay.
Despite being so frustrated by
Again,
it.
There are aspects of it I feel are a little overwhelming, but in general, I absolutely adore it. Again, what I'm speaking of when I was with my frustrations that I clearly relayed, that's explicitly
review
with the
crunch
review
coming out.
crunch time. Specifically, I have lots of good stuff to say about the game, but I guess we're doing that next instead of the bad stuff, right? On the bad zone, environments are a little bit repetitive, a little drab, a little not great environments. Okay, level design is some of the most sadistic stuff I have ever seen in a video game. It's like the developer's actually laughing when he makes inescapable traps. No matter how hard you're looking, there's going to be a boulder that comes down that stairway you never could have prepared for. There's going to be bats flying out of a cave that knock you off a ledge and kill you.
This seems
There's
like the
gonna
wrong
be
lessons to take from Dark Souls.
Trap doors that lead to spike pits.
Oh, man.
So
That
many
does
things
not sound fun.
that just kill you.
Did you ever
Okay.
throw the controller?
No,
Dan doesn't
There
throw
it is.
controllers.
I have never done that.
When Dan Tack says a game is hard, I believe him. And this is one where he's like, this is really, really tough.
Some of the difficulty, it is a hard game. There is no getting around that. I do think it's harder than Dark Souls, but some of that difficulty comes from the fact that I had to adjust from a strict Dark Souls perspective to the mechanics of this game, which are more complex,
Okay.
objectively.
So what does it knock out of the park?
Every boss battles, combat is, once you get the hang of it, is extremely elegant. More precise, like I said, more complex than Dark Souls, but being able to, it's like a highly choreographed dance, okay, of like parries, blows, dodges, and strikes. It's very, very well put together, and when everything comes together, you look and feel amazing while you're playing it. It's like, wow, did I just do that? I just did like a triple combo, zip across the field, samurai, crazy anime stuff, right?
So I feel like a lot of fans that are going to be interested in Nioh are maybe coming from that Dark Souls perspective. So what was that learning curve? Like, how did you have to retrain your fingers?
Dark Souls. Okay, let's just get this clear. Dark Souls
Please.
fans will be very happy with Nioh.
Okay.
Period.
Okay,
End of
great.
story on that. Absolutely. There's just other mechanics they have to take into account. The way your stamina or ki bar or kai, however they pronounce it, I don't know how. Your bar works differently in this game. Like if you get hit, you lose that. So it's all about depleting your opponents and keeping yours intact. So there's different mechanics weaved in. Combat's a little more complex, and then you have these other systems on top of that. This isn't a single game where it's point A to point Z, right? You're not just one big open world. You can do the missions as much as you want. You can do side missions as much as you want. That lets you level up and get comfortable and get lots more loot, Diablo-style loot. So randomized elements, finding the perfect gear, all these things can help you survive.
So you are in like a social hub? Like how Destiny
More or
is this
less,
thing?
more or less the open your map screen where you pick missions and do all that other kind of stuff. It's sort of like the Destiny I'm in a ship menu screen, picking your location to go to. Not exactly, but it's the most modern thing that I can liken it to that people will immediately understand.
Kim, you have been strangely interested in this game. I was just talking about it with Dan the other day. Like, I don't get it because you're not a huge Dark Souls person. You're not a Team Ninja person. What is it about this dark samurai aesthetic that has you all tickled?
It is a strange thing for me as well because, like I said, I'd played it at TGS, and for someone who I liked how I could wrap my head around stuff, but the answer never seemed like out of reach. Sometimes in Dark Souls, I feel like, oh, I'm just banging my head against the wall for a bit. But this, like, I would just adapt better. I don't know how to explain it. Maybe it's how I approached the game or what I did differently. But I thought like the samurai stuff was really cool. I really liked the boss battle that I showed. It was that Yukiana,
The ice
ice
princess?
ones, yeah. And so that was really fun to play. And I didn't get frustrated like I did in Dark Souls. And I don't know why, because usually you would think it being so challenging that I would, but I almost just like, all right, well, that's not going to work. And then I'd like whip out my bow and arrow and be like, oh, if I just hit that guy from the side and approach it this way, it's fine. Like everything just clicked with me better when I played it.
I wonder if it's just a demo situation though, and then once you get to the main game and
well,
bats
now
are
he
throwing
kind
you
of
off
made
the
me a
ledge.
little concerned about hearing this. I was like, well, you better co-op through some of it with me with the multiplayer stuff, just because I'm not one of those people who likes unescapable traps and just like
like
keep
marriage.
Okay,
That's a big one.
And like I like challenging boss battles, but I don't want to be in the point where I'm just like, can I even beat this thing or not?
Yeah.
Which I don't want to ever have to question that. And like I said, part of it then, taking it from what Tack says in the sense of like, yeah, that game sounds awful to be the reviewer on, but I think if I can take it at a slower pace, so I'm still interested in it. I'm just like, I don't know if this will be another Dark Souls situation where I start it, get a few hours in, and then just like, no.
And it's long. There's a lot of meat to this thing.
Really?
I certainly felt much longer than a Dark Souls game. It took me 40 hours to
Oh,
complete.
wow. I expected it to be like a 15, 20 hour
And that's with me,
adventure.
pushing Dan Tacken the whole way. So
No explanation needed.
right, exactly.
Can of Mountain Dew.
Right. Can of
Eventually.
Mountain Dew, hand down the pants. This is apparently
So
Ben Hansen's fantasy,
Wait,
everyone.
that's your problem. You had one hand in your pants. That must have been why it was so
But like Al
difficult.
Bundy style, know?
I
like
know what you're talking about.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
So you mentioned like the boss battles.
Yeah,
Is
they're
it
great.
just like novelty? Are we talking scope? What's
So
the
I
feeling
don't
here?
think the boss battles are quite as good as Dark Souls boss battles.
Okay.
They're a little bit. Some of them are really missed. Some of them are just like, hey, I'm another samurai guy and we're gonna fight. But there are more. But like there's 20 plus bosses at least. So.
Wow.
There are others that are really great. The final boss fight I thought was really great and entertaining. That one's up on the site if you want to watch it. Lots of spoilers there. I enjoyed what they did with the story post game. I can't really talk more about that without breaking an embargo here.
Interesting. Okay.
But that was more interesting to me than the story of the main game, which I found there were tons of cutscenes. I didn't like the cutscenes. They were ranged from incomprehensible to ridiculous and didn't do it for me. However, as opposed to the cutscenes, there are little like vignettes every time you get a new spirit that tell you about the owner who's giving it to you, and it's done in a really stylistic
Motion graphics.
Yes,
Okay.
very cool. I enjoyed those greatly.
Okay.
So that was a mixed bag. But the combat and everything is just great, and not just the bosses. This game makes you fear the yokai. Okay, those are generally the people are just whatever, right? It's a soldier. Okay, they're gonna shoot me with a gun. Maybe they get cannons and shoot me with that. Maybe they kill me. Okay, whatever. Even the samurai aren't scary, but the yokai are very scary because they will always kill you.
So yokai, watch out for sure.
Right.
Okay.
Like I went into this game knowing the only other concept of yokai was from Yokai Watch. And I'm like,
Yeah.
these are cute little creatures I'm going
Yeah.
to play with. And then like, a giant cyclops grabs you and pushes you into the ground and kills you instantly. Everything kills you instantly. The
Of
yokai
course.
kill you instantly.
What about multiplayer? You were trying to explain
Yeah,
it this
great
morning. I'm
stuff.
confused. How
Great
does this
stuff.
work?
If this is there are many features. I want to go through them real quick.
Please.
That are like if you don't think that this game is for you because you're intimidated, you can take it slow. You can do the submissions to get better loot over and over and over, level up that way, get tons of experience, out-level the content. It's harder to out-level the content in this game than it is in Dark Souls, but it can still be done.
Okay.
And then, of course, multiplayer. You can jump into a game at any time, get rewards for playing, very little risk because you can't lose your stuff because you're just in someone else's game. You get rewards based on your performance and if you beat the mission there. So that's great. You can just hop into games over and over and over, get rewarded. That's cool.
I mean,
Great.
you're like helping other people with the bosses?
Yeah.
That's all that means.
Typically bosses. You can go through
Okay.
the whole level with them if you want.
Okay.
And then, for those who want a little bit bigger challenge, there is a totally new mode that is different, same levels, but differently laid out with different enemies called Yokai Realm. And that is 2 players going together. You share a life pool. You get X lives to complete the mission. That's more hardcore, and the rewards are awesome.
So I'm trying to figure this out. So if you're a Dark Souls fan,
Mm-hmm.
which, don't want to harp too much on that comparison, but it seems the most apt.
Unfortunately, I hate comparing a game to when I'm speaking of a game.
Yeah.
But in this case, there is literal item translations and mechanics
Yeah.
are taken right from Dark Souls. And it's
Really?
fine. It
I
works
mean,
out great.
I sat down with the director, and he was totally fine with people referring
there's just
to
no
it
way
as
to-
the
Yeah.
comparisons. They're not offended, or they know what they're trying to do. Like you know.
Most of the time, I'd be like, "Oh no, we don't want to talk about that other game in context." But this game, it takes so much from that game
Yeah.
and is laid out in that context that I don't think we can talk about it without talking about Dark Souls.
So in theory, we might be in a little bit of a drought for new Dark Souls releases, right?
In
Miyazaki
theory.
is working on something mysterious. Who
There-
knows
there
what
is
Namco's going to do?
There is no way we're not getting another Souls game from those guys.
Really?
And anyone who says yes, there's
Well,
just
but
no
not
way.
this year, right?
Yeah, probably not
Like, we
this
don't.
year.
Yeah.
Well, what has been the official messaging from Miyazaki? He like when we were there, when we were hanging out with the dude, he very much made it seem like this is
I
my
don't-
end of the road here.
I don't want to talk about any of this because it includes company perspectives that we don't know about.
But Namco's going to try to keep milking that name in some way.
I'm sure that it would seem likely that they would attempt to continue the franchise based on the IP.
Dan, sometimes when we're sitting around this table recording the podcast, it's like you're in like a Senate interrogation.
No, I feel very
Well, what do
strongly
you
about the
think's
things
more
I say,
likely,
so I want to make sure
that
that I word them correctly.
or
Yeah.
Bloodborne 2.
What's that?
What do you think's more likely, that we see another Souls game or a Bloodborne 2?
I would love to see a Bloodborne 2, so I'm partial to that.
I
would
could see
love to
I could see Sony paying up. But anyways, my point is there might be a little bit of a drought for Dark Souls fans in that vein. It's like you could go back to Lords of the Fallen, which remember you thought was an okay.
It's okay.
Yeah.
This again, if you are a Souls fan, this game is for you. Straight
Right.
up, you might be a little skeptical about some of those other mechanics. Like I certainly was. I was like, loot, Diablo loot, that changes the whole game, right? And no open world, but you know what? It works. It's different,
Wow.
but it works, and it works well.
right
good to
on.
hear.
A little bit of a learning curve, and it's going to get ridiculously hard by the
Definitely has a learning curve. It is it is a difficult game,
end. Yeah.
but there are systems in place. So even if you are the worst player, you don't ever engage with any of the mechanics, and you just keep spamming the button. If you played enough, you could theoretically complete the game like that.
And
Can
when does it come out?
I have a question.
February
Dan.
7th.
Beautiful. Yes, Kyle.
Can I play this game fast in the same sense that I play Dark Souls? Because I like to
Great.
go no shields, like 2 swords.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, because from the demos, it looked like it was very much like I'm going to engage one-on-one, and every battle's going to take a while, and I got to
No way.
No,
There's a 2-sword build, and
Okay.
many builds do not involve parrying. You
okay. You
dashing
can
and
roll
blocking and
around a
rolling.
lot.
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely. And interesting that you brought that up. The time thing. The regular missions are quite involved, and I ended up not liking them as much because of that. They are lengthy treks to get to those bosses, but the submissions are great. They take 5-15 minutes and can be punched out real quick.
Right on. Thank you so much for watching this excerpt from the Game Informer Show podcast. You can click right here if you want to subscribe and listen to the audio version of the full show. Full episodes air every Thursday, and they feature Game Informer editors sitting around talking about the biggest reviews, previews. We talk about exclusive impressions of Game Informer's cover stories. We have long-form developer interviews, everything that's great in gaming. So every Thursday, be sure to check it out.